Hello, colorful creators. Today we're going to be learning some basic skills and techniques for watercolors. So go ahead and grab everything from your supply list and let's get ready to get creative.
It's time to get started. Grab your supplies. I have my watercolor brushes here, a lot of different sizes that I'll be working with, some small, some large. I have my set of watercolors, 2 cups of water here, one for dirty water and one for clean water. And I have my paper that I have taped out on my surface. You can do this, so make sure you have your watercolor paper and you can put some tape on it just so it's not moving around and it makes it flat on your paper so it doesn't bubble up when you get the water on it. So once you have all your supplies and you're ready to get going, you can go ahead and select a few colors that you will be putting on just a paper, or maybe you have an art palette that you can be putting those watercolor paints on. And we're going to be learning just some different skills with watercolor. So I really want you to focus and take time in this exercise. And one thing that you really want to remember when we start here is that watercolor works with paint and water. So you only need a tiny bit of paint to begin with. So you're going to select a tiny little bit of paint from the color that you have selected, and then you're going to be mixing water with that, and it's going to make it become a lot more. So always remember it's watercolor, so water comes first. And if you notice here, I am dipping my paint brush into the water and dipping up some of that water and putting that on my paper first before I put color in it. So I'm going ahead and putting the exact shape that I'm wanting to on my paper. So we're just going to be making a lot of different circles around on our paper and just practicing using the watercolor within these different circles. So you can grab a different brush. I'm working with a larger flat brush, and the end of it is straight, and I'm going to be using that just to make some bigger circles around my paper. And so dip in some of your paint that you have selected already and grab a little bit of the water to mix in with that paint, and then you're going to just put that down on your paper after you have already layered in some of the water on the paper as well. And so with our cups as well, the reason why we have 2 cups of water, one of them is for mixing, cleaning our brush. So whenever we're switching colors and we're mixing colors there, and say we first started with a blue color and we're going to be switching to a yellow, we're going to mix out our brush in the dirty water. And then whenever we need fresh, clean water, and we're going to be putting, say, fresh water into the yellow paint or whatever paint you're switching to, you're going to pick that water up from the clean water cup. So make sure you have a dirty water cup and a clean water cup, and you want to make sure that you remember those and don't forget that. It's just going to help make sure that your colors remain really bright and vibrant. And you want to keep a napkin or maybe a paper towel handy so that way you can also dry off your brushes and clean them off as well. So go ahead and work over your whole picture, putting just some different circles around your picture. And even though this is a skill drill, so we're just really focusing on practicing watercolors. If you've never worked with watercolors before, it can sometimes take a little bit of work to learn how to use them and different techniques, so that way you can get really good at using them as well. So because this is a skill drill, we're focusing really on the skills within it. We're not so much focusing on a finished piece. So if you mess up, that's totally okay. It's totally fine. This is the time to do it. It's time to figure out, okay, yes, this is how you do things with watercolor, or no, don't do that with watercolor. So this is the time to kind of just experiment and to figure some things out. If you get a finished piece of artwork at the end of it, that's great, but that's not the goal. It's really just to work on our skills with working with watercolor. So it's almost like a practice before the big game of working on the big piece. So just work around your picture, doing lots of different circles. Another technique with watercolors is layering. So you might have noticed that I have taken my paper towel and I'm just dabbing it within the circle that I'm working on, and that is a way that you can create lighter areas. So say if you put too much paint down on your picture in a certain spot, you can take your paper towel or your napkin and you can dab it in that area, and that will just kind of lighten it in that area. So I'm just doing that on my circle here, and I'm kind of creating a little bit of some shading. Shading is darks and lights, and so shading helps to give 3D dimension and kind of give something some shape. And so we can create shape by having shading and lights to darks within it. So even though I'm working on a flat piece of paper here, I can make my circles look almost round, like a circular, maybe like a bouncy ball or something, because I can give it a little bit of shading. And during this time as well, you can switch between your different brushes. I've been switching out between a larger and a medium-sized flat brush here. And you can just pick whichever ones, kind of figure out, play with them a little bit and figure out which one works best for the different things that you're wanting to create. If you are creating big circles in your picture, then you're going to want a bigger brush. If you're creating small circles, you're going to want a smaller brush. So keep that in mind as you are working. Think of the shape that you're trying to create, and then you're going to pick a brush that is most similar to that shape. And so ultimately, we're going to just be filling up our picture with a bunch of different circles, arranging them in different colors, and kind of creating a fun little pattern here. So you kind of want to think about your color scheme that you're working with. So I liked these colors that all went together. It's kind of like a brighter green, a blue, and then a yellow, and then a black. And so I just kind of like those. I thought they all looked really good together. So maybe you picked your favorite colors, or maybe you just started with one color and you're going to be picking and you want to add other colors to it as well. So just kind of think about your color palette that you want to do. And a color palette just means all the colors that you will be using within one area or one piece of artwork. And one little tip with watercolor as well is the more water that you add to your paint, the less bright or vibrant it'll be. So if you want really, really dark color, then you're not going to add as much water to your paint. So you would mix more water in it if you wanted lighter color. Because as you can notice, whenever I squeezed out the black paint, it's very dark, very black. But whenever I put it on my paper, it's more of a gray color. Now I could leave it that way, or if I wanted it to be more of a black color, I could ultimately wait for that area to dry, that first layer of paint that I put down, and then I could go in with another layer of paint with the black watercolor on top of it again and layer that again. That will make the color a lot more vibrant and a lot darker. And make sure that you're cleaning off your brushes in between each color change. So whenever you're switching from one circle
so high I'm hypnotized. Up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky on your mind.
As you are creating, if you want something darker, you're going to do less water. Lighter, more water. And try out your different brush sizes as you're working as well. Try making some circles with the big brushes, and then try making some circles with some more of your flat brushes as well. I'm going to be using a small pointed brush and just dabbing and doing kind of like some little circle dots here along the edge of a circle. So if you're going to want to try this technique, you're going to put down some clean water in the shape of a circle. Don't pick up any paint yet. And you're going to put that on your paper. And then you're going to take your smaller pointed brush and you're going to pick up a little bit of your paint and just kind of do little polka dot motions all around the edge of your circle of the water that you've already created. And this is just going to add a little bit more texture, kind of just a fun little kind of design. You'll be able to notice the difference of how the watercolor goes on the paper. There's going to be a little bit more variation, a lot more speckles kind of looking, and it's going to be really kind of fun and cool. So remember, this is your time to experiment with your watercolors. So if you want to try some different polka dots, go for it. If you want to try doing some different stripes, go for it as well. Another little tip that I can tell you is if you are wanting to have more of a defined area, so say you're wanting to do some stripes or to do more of a pattern with a solid like polka dot design or something, you're going to want to make sure that you don't mix very much water within your paint, because whenever you mix a lot more water, it tends to move around a little bit more. And if you're wanting like a really solid straight line, if you have a lot of water within it, it's probably going to bleed out and it's not going to be so thin and so straight as what you may want. So I'm picking up my crayon and doing some more of this wax resistant in this little area as well. I'm going to put another circle over top of that. And I'm just doing kind of some little like jagged little line marks, dashes right here that I did with the crayon. So try some different patterns with that. And I also want you to kind of think of each one of these little shapes, each one of these circles, if you're doing circles, as each one of them a new area to try something else with watercolor. So if one of them, if you did polka dots in, great. The next one, try doing it solid. And then the next one, try doing some of these wax line marks with the crayon. And then the next one, maybe you could try mixing more water with your paint than you did before. And then the next one, you could try having it be really, really dark and layer up your paint more. So doing one layer and then after it's dry, putting another layer on it and getting it really dark. So every single one of these areas, every single one of these circles is a new opportunity to try a new technique with watercolor. So really just have fun and get creative and explore. There's no wrong way to do this. You may try a different technique that I'm not trying here in this video, and that's totally fine. Art is a wonderful place to explore and to just find out new ways and new things that have not been tried yet, and you may figure out that you found a new favorite way to work with watercolors. So if you just noticed, if you were watching, I just picked up a salt shaker actually, and I put a little bit of salt on this one circle that I just put down. Why did I put salt on this circle? I put it there because whenever you do that, salt actually kind of repels the paint that you just put down. So it almost creates like this little like speckled effect, and it's really cool. So if you have some salt around, you can try that out, and I think you're gonna really like the thing that it does with the watercolor because it creates a really cool effect. So, but if you're gonna do it, sprinkle it on the wet paint that you've just put down for the watercolor circle. So if it's dry, it won't have an effect to it, but whenever it's wet, it will take a cool effect. And whenever you're working with watercolor as well, you want to make sure that you don't overwork it and put too much water on your paper. So you'll notice, if you haven't already, that your watercolor paper has kind of a texture on it. And texture meaning it's not, it's kind of a bumpy texture. Okay, and so you're going to want to make sure you don't put too much water on that because it can only absorb so much. So that's another tip to do. And another thing that I'm working on is I'm experimenting in this little circle. I'm going to be making this circle have some different droplet marks on it, and I'm using rubbing alcohol to do that. So I have a really, really tiny little paintbrush that I'm just going in with my cup and picking up little tiny drops of rubbing alcohol, and I'm just dropping those right onto the wet circle that I just did. And so this kind of, again, creates a really cool kind of effect. And all these different circles, even though, yes, I may have 3 yellow circles here, every single one of them is different. So again, this is just a really awesome opportunity to just think of every single circle as its own thing and its own time to just experiment with something new and something fun with watercolors. If you do find, though, that you have put too much water on your paper, you can always use a paper towel, a napkin, or even a sponge actually to soak up some of that water. So if you notice that you have like big pools of water, just kind of a big puddle of water sitting on your paper, it's not being absorbed and it's just sitting there. You can pick up your paper towel, napkin, or sponge and just lightly dab that, so that way it'll kind of soak up that moisture and it's not just sitting on your paper and making it all bubbly and soaking wet. Also, the reason why I put tape down, if you notice that as well, is because my sometimes your paper can like bubble up, and I just wanted to make sure that my paper stayed really flat. So water can tend to warp things and make it kind of bubble up. So that's why I put my tape down. If you didn't tape your paper, that's perfectly fine as well. Especially if maybe your parents don't want tape on the table, but I used a painter's tape and it'll come off really easily. This little circle, I'm practicing doing some lights to darks in it, and really building up that color on one of the sides. So I just made sure that I didn't put as much water whenever I wanted it to be really dark, and I layered in a couple extra layers as well. And I want to remind you also to take your time as you're creating. If you are rushing through this project, then it might not look as neat, or you might not be able to master all the skills that you're needing to before we move on to the next video. So really take your time whenever you're creating artwork. There's no time that you need to end within. Even after this video finishes and my project may be finished, you may not be finished, and that's totally okay. Keep creating. Don't let my time frame keep you from keep on creating more. Even if you need to pause the video, you are totally welcome to do that at any point. I will be right here waiting for you whenever you come back. So maybe even you need to take a break and pick it up tomorrow or another time, or you just want your picture to dry a little bit before you add some more layers on. You can totally do that as well. An awesome thing with watercolor is even once you let it dry, if you put water back on top of your picture, back on these colors, it kind of reactivates them and wakes them up again, so that way you can keep creating. So, if I was working on this and then I decided that I needed to come back to it tomorrow and my picture was dry, but then I wanted to add other things to it or change it a little bit, I would just kind of add a little bit of water over top of the areas that I was working on, and I could kind of change it a little bit and manipulate the colors a little bit. So keep creating and keep working until you feel like you have mastered your watercolors and you feel comfortable with them. If you filled up one paper completely with everything that we're doing, with all the colors and everything, and you want to start another one, you are totally welcome to do that. This is a project that you can keep working with. Maybe one of them you did circles that you filled up completely, and the next one, say maybe you wanted to choose different colors or do some squares or try some more techniques out. You can also do that as well. So now I'm going to be going in and layering on a little bit of detail on top of some of my circles that have already dried. So you're not going to be able to layer detail on if your circles are still wet, because those colors are just going to blend in with the colors that you've already put down. So if it's still wet, you can still move it. Keep that in mind. Once it's dried, it's going to stay there until you put more water on it and reactivate it. So I've picked up a smaller brush here, and I've picked up a little bit of my black, and I'm not putting a whole lot of water within this. I'm picking up pretty much just a straight paint here, and I'm just putting these little dot marks over top and layering it on over top to just kind of create a really fun sort of effect on over this little yellow circle. And I'm just practicing creating these different details. So that's kind of the skill that I'm working on within this little area of these little dot marks over top. And obviously this picture within this piece, again, we're very focused on learning the skills with watercolors, but you've probably noticed that I'm not drawing something like a tree or a landscape or a dog or something that's very like recognizable, like a realistic picture. And that's okay, because artwork doesn't always have to look like a photograph, if that makes sense. Artwork can be an idea. Artwork can be a feeling. Okay. And so in this picture, even though, yes, we're working on skills, I'm still kind of thinking about the overall layout of the picture. I'm thinking about the colors that I'm using, picking colors that work well together. I really like this bright yellow up against the blue and then this other green. They really complement each other and work good. And then the contrast also with the gray that I'm working with too. And I'm doing different shades of the lights and darks and really spreading it out. Like, I don't want to focus all of my yellow in one area. You know, I kind of wanted to spread it out just how I did the blues. They're kind of spread out as well. So I'm trying to make something that still looks really pretty, but if I mess up, that's totally okay too. You don't have to artwork doesn't always have to be shown to other people. It doesn't always have to be hung on your refrigerator. Sometimes artwork is created just simply for creating it and not for a finished piece. Maybe you just wanted to experiment and try some different things out. You can totally do that and not feel like it has to be a finished product. So I'm just going in and adding some smaller circles just within my picture, just wherever I see that I need them. I added one there, and then I'm going to be adding some other different kind of textures and just again like experimenting with some different things. So I'm going to be doing kind of this little crisscross pattern on this circle here using a small flat brush that's straight at the end, and I'm adding that on over top of a circle that's already dry. So remember, if it's dry, it's not going to move, and it's not going to have the colors bleed into it. So if you're wanting to add more detail on over top, make sure that your circles are already dry. So if you need to pause the video and let your circles dry, you can go ahead and do that and then come back to them once they're dry and add more things to it. I also want you to remember that as you are working with watercolors, to not overwork them. And whenever I say overwork them, that means you continually put paint, you continually put water, you keep going and going and going and going whenever you really need to stop. Because watercolor with the paper and with the water, if you keep going and keep going and keep going, you can almost end up kind of scrubbing the paper, and you don't want to push hard on the paper with your brushes. So you want to make sure that you're very light with it. Watercolor is just a very light medium to work with, and so you don't want to push really hard because then you can end up scrubbing the paper, and almost it can kind of scrub it off to where you can almost create holes in the paper, and you do not want to do that. So make sure that you are very light within it, and you also don't do a ton of water just over and over again. Just remember that if you have kind of just like puddles of water on your paper and it's not absorbing into the paper after a few minutes, then you probably should take like a paper towel, sponge, or napkin and kind of just lightly dab those areas to absorb it off. So your paper can only absorb so much water. So you can keep going and doing as many shapes and as many different pieces of paper of this as you want, and make as many projects as you want. You are totally welcome to do that. Again, create until you feel confident working with watercolors. Whenever we do artwork, it's the same thing as, if we were playing sports. So maybe you play soccer or basketball or softball or something, or football, and the way that we get better at those sports is by practicing them, right? So in order for us to get better with art, we have to actually practice. We can't expect for us to just sit down and to start creating and know exactly how to use our paints and know the best way to use them and just be really awesome at it. We have to practice. We have to put hard work in. And we also have to learn, again, like our tools that we're working with. We have to know how these paints work. These paints are going to work different than other paints. And how we use them is going to be different than we use other paints. What works with these paints might not work with other paints. So we have to know that, so that way, whenever we're going to create our picture or our piece that we're working on, we know how to use them and we can execute what we have in our mind and make that a reality on our paper. Because sometimes we may have something in our mind that we think, okay, this is how I want my picture to look. But then we create it and it doesn't quite look the way that we planned. And some of that is just because, one, we need some more practice, or two, maybe we don't know how to work with our mediums and our tools that we're using. So we need to learn how to use our paintbrushes, the different things that we use them for, and how to use our paints. And, I'm going to be able to create a different effect with watercolors than I would if I was drawing with colored pencils or something, and we want to make sure that we're using, say, the right paper as well. If I was using watercolors on regular paper, maybe even it's paper that I would put in my printer at home, like that is not going to work. We would be having a big, huge mess. Water would be everywhere. Why? That paper is way too thin to use for watercolor. It's made for printing on in your printer, but it's not made for using in watercolor. Our watercolor paper is thicker, and it also has like bumps all over it. And those bumps are kind of like, you can think of it as little pockets that absorb and soak all the water into. So again, that's why we want to make sure that we have the right tools, we know how to use those tools, and we practice using those tools. And that's going to help us to become a better creator. And when we know how to use those things, it's a lot more fun too. It's kind of discouraging whenever we're creating something and it doesn't look how we want to. And sometimes we can get really sad about that. I know I've felt that before whenever I wanted to create something and it didn't quite turn out the way I wanted it to. And so whenever we're confident and we know how to use the tools that we have, it's so much more fun to create. So I would just encourage you to continue practicing even after this video. If you want to practice some more, go ahead. Practice is not only fun, but it's also going to help you to improve and get better working and be a better creator as well. So keep adding until you feel like your picture is done. Add all the different details that you want. And then once you finish practicing within this video and practicing these different skills, we will be moving on to the next video, which I'm so excited about, in the next project. So make sure that you are all ready for that, because practice is almost over and we can say the big game, even though it's not a game, but the big piece that we'll be working on is coming, and you got to be ready for that. So finish up working here. I am almost done with my picture, and then I will let it dry after I'm completely done here. You want to make sure you let it stay flat until it's completely done drying. Otherwise, if you pick it up, the water might kind of run off and ruin your beautiful masterpiece that you've been working on. So make sure it stays flat to dry. I hope you've enjoyed creating with me during this time, and you have created a beautiful masterpiece, and you have learned a ton about watercolors. And I cannot wait to see you in the next video, and also to see all the beautiful creations that you are making. Make sure you tag us on Instagram, and we would love to see that. So thank you so much for creating with me today, and we will see you next time.